World Cup week here in Orlando, Florida, and we have an exclusive first look at the new MacDev Prime XTS, thanks to Bourke from MacDev. Let's see what you've got.
Well, I've got it right here. So this is the new Prime XTS. It's got brand new grips on there. The first thing people should notice is these big new eye covers, which are toolless. So you can just take those things off.
Wow.
On and off. We've done some work on the drive. We've done some work in the body electronics. It's got a repositionable front grip.
Oh.
So you can go from 8 degrees to vertical.
Okay.
And thumb adjust, little touches, and yeah, that's pretty much it. We've gone through the whole gun and revamped it.
So this is the new high-end offering from MacDev for 2020.
Yes, so this replaces the Prime, which we were selling for the last 2 years. So this is the newest Prime high-end, retails $1,400.
Available to come and see at the booth this week?
Yes, so people can come and see it, touch it, shoot it. We'll have air on it. It'll be going out to the field and being shot, so you can see it being used. We'll pull it apart, we'll do tech courses, we'll do all that stuff here at the MacDev Anthrax booth.
Okay, let's dive in.
Probably the biggest technical feature is the eye covers, the new big eye covers. So they're big, so you can grab a hold of them and just open them. It's very, very new because there's toolless eye covers around, but these are magnetically and mechanically fastened.
Okay,
but with no moving parts.
So true toolless eye cover removal.
That's right, and the no moving parts part is quite important because that's something that won't get gummed up with dirt and water and rust or anything like that.
Okay, so whilst other markers would have a latch that you have to release, etc., these are magnetically retained and you literally pull them off the body.
Yes, that's right. So some people might say, are the magnets going to be strong enough? They're not really what holds it in place during use. So they're what release it, so we're not relying on that magnet, even though they are very strong. You might have just felt that.
Yeah, yeah, there's quite some, I guess you'd call it retention power.
Yes. So it needs a kilogram, or let's say 2 pounds of force to actually pull it open, which is why it's big, but you've got mechanical advantage, and so they're quite easy to take off, aren't they?
Very, actually. Very. What I like initially is how easy it is to actually remove them, but then how secure the sound you get
snapping it
when it goes back.
Like closing the door on an expensive car.
Yeah. Performance-wise, what tweaks have you made?
So when it comes to performance, we found that the Prime had an infinity drive in it.
Okay.
And that runs at only 100 PSI, which some people find surprising. So we didn't want to make giant changes to it because it was one of the most reliable things about the Prime. So we just made some small changes to the way it's held in, the latching. So when it comes to performance, it does make a little difference to how consistent each shot is. But we didn't make too many giant sweeping changes to the inside of the drive. So it's a lot like last year's drive.
Okay.
So we kept these parts which were doing really well. So people can rely on the mature technology of the drive and the way it works. So a huge amount of these changes are more to do with functionality, the feeling of the gun in your hands, ergonomics, being able to use it. The biggest technical performance change is the eyes themselves.
Okay.
So the way they see the ball is very, very clear and fast and reliable.
You've changed the grips quite significantly.
Mm-hmm.
With the grips, talk us through the reasoning for what you've done.
Okay, so the last grips were hermetically sealed. So they were quite hard and very tight in the gun to make sure no water got in there and things like that.
Okay.
But that led to them just lacking that soft feel that people wanted.
Right.
And also they were just difficult to get on and off, and sometimes people broke them doing it. So the new grips are soft feeling and easy to take on and off, but they still retain that seal. So achieved that by putting a very soft gasket style outer rim to the grip. So when it tightens down, it's on something soft, not something hard. So there's no catching, and it feels comfortable. We widened it, we fattened it a little. It feels a little thicker in your hands.
Right.
Not much, the Prime was really slimline, so it just needed a little bit of a thickening.
Yes, yeah, almost like a palm swell.
Yes, you'll notice it's right here where the logo is.
Yep.
There's a little swell out there just to fill your hand.
Okay. Same material on the foregrip as well as the main grip?
It is the same material. Material science is something that we work really hard at in the company. So this is not, it's formulated for us.
Right, okay.
So we've used this material before with great success on the Clone 5 Cyborg 6. So people who've had those have known that while the grips are really soft, they just don't really wear out or break or anything.
Right.
So we've gone back to this material that was so successful.
And I guess one question from current Prime owners, are the grips going to be backwards compatible?
100%. So that was what took us so long, is to make sure that this grip would fit on the Prime one. So it does. You can put it straight on there and replace your grips with this once they're available.
Are there any other components on the XTS that are going to be backwards compatible?
Yes, there is. We've done some work in the drive pin arrangement to make it hold firm and have more mechanical strength whilst you're shooting. That pin will go straight into a Prime. And
oh wow.
Yeah, so you can use that. If you want to change the ASA or the feed tube, they'll go straight onto a Prime as well.
Right,
so
okay.
There's a big thought of backwards compatibility. The gun lasts for a long time. You don't throw out a gun after a year.
Sure.
So we always think of what we can do possibly to keep it the same for people.
So talk us through the features of the drive in the Prime XTS.
Okay, so this drive is a infinity drive, which some people might know, but if you're not familiar with it, it manages this complex job of firing the ball, shutting off the air, dumping the air out, doing everything efficiently with only one moving part. So that's the claim to fame of this, that the only part that moves is the bolt. There's nothing else moving in there, and it's simple. That's what makes it reliable.
Okay.
But we also managed to do all that with just 100 psi. By hitting it with lower pressure, we can shoot more fragile paint. There's less paint deformation. So when you hit it with air, it the whole thing squashes. So we want it to stay spherical. So by not deforming it, it's more accurate.
Obviously that translates into the feel of the marker. How important a consideration is that for you as the designer of this product when it comes to, I guess, making something that you want people to enjoy using, but also making something that's feasible to produce? There must be some form of trade-off or balance.
There is. At the end of the day, it's a gun. So if it doesn't feel like a gun when you shoot it, you want some sort of reaction from the gun. You want to feel something, and what we've come to understand is that you can shoot at very low pressure, and other people have managed it by just having the valve open for a long time. And you end up with this sort of long, soft shot, which doesn't feel very good.
Almost a kind of a new venture shocker, bloopy kind of...
Exactly.
Yeah. So
people who know our guns know that it's snappy.
Right.
So we've managed to get the air out very fast.
Okay.
So we get that 100 psi out there as quick as possible, and that gives you a snappy feel. The big thing about this drive is that the recoil is backwards, not upwards.
Okay.
So recoil is not a bad thing. You want a little bit of recoil, but just not upwards. The sound is a big thing as well. It doesn't carry the same. If you've got a short, sharp sound, it carries differently to a long, soft sound.
Sure.
We did a lot of work on the barrel with angled porting. The barrel that comes with this gun has angled porting, 45 degrees.
Okay.
So the sound is projected forward, not sideways.
Okay.
So not only is it more efficient, but it also means that when you're talking to your teammates, you can talk to them. You get the gun, obviously. There's a barrel with 2 inserts. So we've got an insert style barrel, which is a bit unique. Our Shift 3 barrel has got the insert coming in between, which is unusual. So you've got quite a lot of ways of doing an insert. So that just makes sure that it only sees 2 pieces, not 3, and also can't come out accidentally. It's got those parts. It also comes with tools, grease, spare parts, and a manual and a barrel bag.
So can you talk us through the changes that you've made to the front grip?
So with the front grip, besides it being soft, we made it a lot thicker, and there's a bit of a ridge here, which is intended for you to come up and rest onto. You see this little lip here? That's intended so that when the barrel's on, it gives you a comfortable hand grip up against the barrel, so you don't feel that edge. So there's a lot of comfort work there. But besides that, the big change is the angle.
Okay.
So being able to change it from this forward 8 degrees to vertical just gives you that flexibility of slight difference in tightness for those players who want to play tighter or they want to play at the back longer. They have that change in flexibility.
Was there a reason that you settled on an 8-degree difference?
Yes. So we took a lot of photos of how people hold the guns, and we looked at it very carefully about the angle of their elbow.
Okay.
So 8 degrees actually made their wrist straighter,
right,
and gave them more comfort when holding the gun. Because of us trying to make it as strong as possible, we chose to limit it to these two, which are most common.
Okay. So can you talk us through the process of actually making that adjustment?
Yep. So you have to take the frame off and then take the grip cap off, slide off the rubber, and then it has a wedge block which you undo from the body and switch around to the new position.
Okay.
And then reconnect the foregrip.
So it's literally paintballer proof.
It is. It is. You can't put it together incorrectly.
Right.
Unless, of course, you're aiming for 8 degrees and you've got vertical.
Right. Right. You either
but it would
get
still
one
work.
or the other.
You will. Yes. You can't break it. It's very, very strong, which is why initially our idea was to be able to do something externally toolless to do it. But we never wanted to trade off the strength of the grip, and the grip is very, very strong, and wanted to make sure it stayed that way. So we've made little changes to the ASA particularly. It had a little kick for you to grab a hold of.
Yes, I remember.
Which wasn't ideal because it meant something that you could touch or you could slide on. So we've recessed it in, and now you reach into a little recess to get it, and shorten the lever, because to be honest, the force required to do it is so little.
Okay.
That you just don't need that long mechanical advantage. So that does make the whole thing feel more streamlined, and it means that when you're sliding, whatever, it's simpler. The ASA action, we haven't really changed very much. We just tweaked it to make it a little better.
Right.
The feed tube itself, it's still reminiscent of the same, but we just added the thumb adjustment. So by having thumb adjustment, obviously it gives you that flexibility of putting it wherever you like. We did find people were over tightening this.
Okay.
We went to a toolless disassembly, and
right.
This pin here is around 8 times stronger than the old one.
Okay.
So that was the first place that the feed would break if you put extreme pressure on it. So we call this a spine. So there's a theme running through Prime, and they always had sort of a bone-like structure to the milling. The idea was that we would shrink the cosmetics so close to the bones of the gun, as in the shape of it, that you could almost see its rib cage or its bones, and that's
right.
where that design comes from. It's like the eye covers are an example of form following function. So we wanted that to feel the same, that we weren't just putting big shapes on and things. It just felt like we'd sucked down as close and as light as we could on the body. Yes. On release there'll be 5 colours.
Okay.
So your basic black, and then there's a lot of contrasting colours.
Right.
So we think that it's really nice to be able to see the eye cover pop. So there's things like a blue with black, there's a red with a really deep slate grey. So there's some kind of earthy colours.
Okay.
So this one here is an example of a stronger, bolder colour. We've stayed mostly away from that in the general colours. They're more earthy and strong to match the idea of the gun was strength and reliability.
Right. And presumably all of these will be available to pre-order?
Yes, you'll be able to pre-order all of those colours, and the aim is to get them in people's hands well before Christmas. So when we were working on our electronics, we found that there were new sensors available that we could utilise. So the sensors that we've put in there are narrow band infrared. And the idea of that is that they only sense a very narrow band of infrared, which is not the visible spectrum which a lot of people use.
Right.
And so that means that sunlight doesn't really interfere with them very much.
Okay.
So that you can still use the eyes with the eye covers off, they still work.
Right.
You know, if you have some opacity in the eyes, or scratching or damage or paint sheen or anything, then it can see through those. So that really is working well for it. On top of that, we thought we could improve by putting a lens on the eyes. So we came up with a lens design which isolates those eyes from the ball, and it has the added benefit of matching the breech shape exactly, so that any broken paint just gets wiped away by the bolts. Any paint that is in there can't get up into the eyes because they're sealed. In fact, the whole eye system and detent system is sealed so that we don't expect paint to get behind any of these components.
Wow.
So if you want to clean it, for instance, you just pour water down the breech. That's the recommendation.
What a lot of players probably don't appreciate is the fact that you guys manufacture your own solenoid assembly that you've used for, well, how long? Probably
6 years.
Right.
We
Okay.
used our own solenoid assembly fully, it's been difficult, but it affords us a flexibility we wouldn't have otherwise, and that's why we did it. We wanted it to be designed for the gun. Because
so you can dictate how you want that marker to feel through a combination of the drive and the solenoid.
Absolutely.
Right.
So for instance, on this gun, we want it to feel snappy at that low pressure. So
Yeah.
that means fast response times on and off for the solenoid and high flow rates. So
Right.
it has to just switch that thing very quickly back and forth and be very responsive. We couldn't get that out of a standard solenoid at the pressures. So we
Okay.
also dictate the pressures. That's the other thing that we were able to do that off-the-shelf solenoids wanted to blow out and things like that. So our solenoid is pressure proof. If you over pressurize it, it self-relieves. Things that don't need changing, that are really reliable and working as well as they can do, we don't change.
Players I speak to have preconceived ideas of every brand there is in the industry. I'm sure that MacDev have had their battles to fight over the years. Is there anything that you'd like to put to rest?
Well, there's quite a few things, I'd say.
Right, okay.
The main one, the biggest one I think I hear is MacDev's not in the US. And that's not right. The US is our main focus. We have a warehouse,
Right.
we have stock, we have spare parts in stock, we have an online store where you can order, it gets shipped. We're at every NXL event. So our focus is the US.
Thank you very much for taking the time to show us the new MacDev Prime XTS.
You're very welcome.